The weather's icky. All right, so we're going to look at factoring vector things. So this is a continuation of 7.1 algebraic methods. So let's look at example B, part A first. So looking at this by grouping. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at each of the terms and what do they all have in common?
3.
They have. Okay, so what about, so there's not anything that they all four have in common, right? But what about these two?
Yep, they have 2.
They have a 3
X squared.
and x squared, right? What about these two?
4.
The 4, right? Now, when we take out a 3x squared, what are we left with?
X plus 3 plus X.
And then when we take out the 4 from this, what do we have?
X plus.
So now, what do those two terms have in common? We have the first term and this term. They both have x plus 3. So guess what? We can take that out as a greatest common factor. So when we take that out of the first term, what are we left with?
X plus 3.
X plus 3.
Plus X.
So now, if we multiply these together, we should get our original statement. So what's 3 times 3 squared? 3 cubed. X times 4, 4x. 3 times 3 squared.
9x squared.
And then 3 times 4, 12. So that checks. So
Answer?
that's your answer. And so, and that's what I have here. All right, so now let's look at the next one. We're doing the same thing. Oh, I see. So this one we have to the 4th and then cubed here. And so it's going to be the same process, except here we can take out a cubed. So 3x cubed. Questions on these? So let's look at A. So we have 2x cubed. Actually, let's look at B. So we have 4x to the 4th plus 7x cubed plus 4x plus 7.
Yeah, X cubed.
So here we can take out an x cubed. And when we do that, what are we left with?
X or 4x.
So we're looking at that in parentheses. This first term and the second term, what do they have in common?
4x plus 7.
Yeah, 4x plus 7. So when we take out that 4x plus 7 from our first term, what's left? X cubed. And then if we remove this, what are we left with? So we're taking that out. So 4x plus 7 times what gives us 4x plus 7?
1.
1. And we have to put that 1 there because that's our space holder so that when we redistribute, it goes back in. So this is the factor form of that. And just to check, 4x cubed times x, 4x times 3x, 4x times x cubed is 4x squared. 4x times 1 is 4x. 7 times x cubed is, and 7 times 1 is 7. So our answer checks. Alright, so you guys ready to try one? So I'd like for you to try A, please. Looking at our first two.
2x squared.
And when we take out 2x squared, our first term we're left with x.
Plus 5.
So then we want the same thing from our second set of terms.
Negative 3. And we got x plus 5. 2x squared minus 3.
All right, so when we take out, then we're just left with 2x squared, and we're left that for the second term. And so then if we multiply this together, we should get what we had originally. So x times 2x squared is 2x to the third. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. 5 times 2x squared gives us 10x squared, and 5 times negative 3 gives us negative 15. All right, so how are we feeling on those? All right.
Oh, if there's only 3.
Then you can't use that method. And if there's 5, you can't.
So what would you do if there was 3?
Then you have to use
Just
another.
factor the 1 and then leave the other one?
Well, if you had 3, then you could use the quadratic formula or factoring, because you'd have a trinomial then.
Okay.
So you could use slide and divide, factor method. So you want to do number 4? Okay, so we have, in looking at our 3 terms, what's the greatest factor that can be taken out of all 3?
7.
7.
7.
7 what? All right, so
7x.
all right, so when we do that, 7x to the 4th divided by 7x squared is
7x squared. For x squared. Oh, good.
21x cubed divided by 7x squared, and then negative 14x squared. All right, so now I have a quadratic left. I have x squared plus 3x minus 2. So factoring that, what are 2 numbers that multiply to give us negative 2 and add together to give us 3?
I guess it's 1 and 2 or something.
I don't think anything does, because this is negative, so that means that one of the numbers has to be negative, right?
Yeah.
So we can have negative 2 plus 1 or 2 minus 1. And so that's as factors as it's going to get. That's it.
That is it. That's a wrap. Number 5.
Number 5. So we have 7x squared plus 11x plus 4. What I said. So 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. So this one I would use slide and divide. So take this 6, slide it down to the end. So we have x squared plus 11x plus 24. So I need 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 24. Same 2 numbers when I add them together, I get 11. These are both positive, so my numbers are going to be positive. So for 24, listing out my factors. All right, so, yep, I don't have any. All right, so I get that, but am I done?
No.
No. I have to divide, right? Because I did this initial slide of times 6. So I need to do this. Now, neither one, 3 and 6, that's not divisible, and 8 and 6, that's not divisible. So now we're just going to reduce the fractions. So 3 and 6 reduces to what? 1 over 2. And then 8 over 6 reduces to
4x plus 2.
Alright. So then we have 2x plus 1 and 3x plus 4. And just to check my math, 2x times 3x gives us 6x squared. 2x plus 4 gives us 8x. And then 1 times 3 gives us 3x. These are both x's, so 8x plus 3x is 11x. And then 1 times 4 is 4. So it checks.
Oh.
You can also use the quadratic formula to find your x's. Just remember that that gives you x equals. So you need to move everything over. Alright, so now we're going to look at the difference and sum of cubes. So the difference of cubes is when you have 2 terms that are both the cubes. So you have, like, well, a cubed minus b cubed, so the x cubed minus 8, or x cubed minus 27, because 27 is a cube. 3 times 3 times 3, 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. So, remember cubes? Okay. So this, we have a nice formula that we can use to solve, so we don't have to factor. All you have to do is recognize that they're cubes, and then you're going to use this format. So you have your first term minus your second term, and then your first term squared plus the product of your two terms plus your last term squared. And then the sum of two cubes, so when your first and second numbers are both cubes, then you're going to use this formula to solve. And so if you multiply this together, all of your middle terms cancel out. Same here. So if you multiply these together, everything cancels out except your a cube and b cube. So I'll write them on a piece of paper so that we have them in front of us. And we're interested in that you can recognize the cubes and then select the proper equation over memorizing it. So what pattern do you notice in the formulas that appear above? Alright, so in the difference, the first one you're subtracting, here in the sum you're adding, the difference you're adding inside here, and then in the sum you're subtracting in there, and that's what allows all of the middle terms to cancel out. Questions with that? Alright, so factor each sum or difference of cubes. So we have 3 cubed minus 8. So looking at that, is that a sum or difference? It's a difference, right? 8 is a cube. That's 2 times 2 times 2. And if you're not sure, then on your calculator, do you guys have a cube root or an x root button on there? And check. Common ones would be 1, 8, 27, 81. I don't know about that. So 64, 125.
121.
Alright, so
675.
alright.
14
Alright, so here the first thing we need to do is, what is the cube root of x cubed? X. So a equals x, and what's our b value? What's the cube root of 8? 2. Just 2. And so then, are we dealing with a sum or difference of two cubes? Difference. So I'm going to scroll down so I can remember the equation. So we're going to use the difference of cubes. So now I'm just going to substitute in x wherever there's an a and 2 wherever there's a b. So I have x minus 2, and then I have x squared plus 2x plus 2 squared is 4. So there's my answer. Alright. So then to check it, x times x squared is x cubed. X times 2x is x times 4 is negative 2 times x squared. Negative 2 times 2x. And then negative 2 times positive 4.
Did you forget a square at the end?
So my 2x squared and negative 2x squared cancel. My positive 4 and my negative 4x cancel. So I'm just left with x cubed minus 8.
So why does it say difference of cubes and at the end is p squared?
Because it's 2 squared.
Oh, you solved it. So
That means we're right.
Yeah.
That means we chose correctly.
Also,
Yeah, this is it. This is what I was asking for.
How do you find
This
it?
is the check. Alright, so let's look at your calculator. So you have the TI 30x. Then you are going to do second and your caret button.
That's
And then your
very
that. Alright, so I guess let's try D. That one's a little crazy.
Oh, I did D.
Oh, you guys are going to do that one too. Alright, so let's look at D.
Oh.
So we have 27 plus 125x cubed. So what's the cube root of 27? 3. So our A equals 3. And what's our B? What's the cube root of 125? So 5x. So now this is a sum of two cubes. So we're going to use the sum equation. So our A is 3. And then our B is 5x. We're going to have 3 plus 5x. And then we're going to look at this part. So A squared is 9. So then we can combine this. So 3 times 5 reduces to 15x. And so this is the factored form of that. And so then to check it,
Combine A and B.
yep. So that's 3 times 5.
Yeah.
All right. So how are we feeling about this? All right. So I would